I have the goosebumps like hearing you talk about it, because it really was one of the most amazing finish lines. Like, you hear about this heartbreak hill at the end and how, the winners had to walk, and Amy and I were like, I felt amazing. Like, like a huge smile on my face. Like, I felt so pumped.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 153 of the show. It's December.
It is.
Most people probably already know that. And we're starting the first of 3, quote-unquote, year in review episodes to look back on what has been an epic year of swim running. Joining us this week to talk about their amazing year are our friends Trista and Amy, A.K.A. Team Adorkable. If you haven't been following their exploits this year, well, no worries, because we have a recap of all their 2022 exploits.
Absolutely. And in this conversation, we chat about their lofty goals that they set for themselves, their build up to ÖTILLÖ, the Swimrun World Championship, what it's like to be swimrun celebrities, how they were featured in this year's hype film, ÖTILLÖ World Championship hype film by our friend Rasmus. Clocks in at a cool 43 minutes. It's a good watch. It's a good watch. And so much more. So, I mean, we always love to have Trista and Amy on. They're everything that's great about swimrun, and we always look forward to continue to follow their exploits in the coming year, 2023. But it was so great to hear how they thought this year went.
Yeah, I think they've been doing swimrun longer than we have, and they've been one of our biggest supporters since the very beginning.
Yes.
So to kind of be on a very similar journey, I mean, we did all the same races this year.
As we discovered in the first, I was recounted in the first 5 minutes of the episode, like, oh, yeah, we saw you here. Oh,
yeah,
okay, we had the same schedule.
So it was cool to kind of be on that journey. I mean, it was our first Swimrun World Championship, same as theirs. We had the same fears and anxieties. So it was just a great chat, and I think a great way to start this sort of triplicate of year in review episodes.
Absolutely. And if this is your first time hearing about the Adorkables, they're featured in several episodes, so go back and check those out if you want to hear their journey. We've talked to them a couple of years ago in February for Partners Month, long before ÖTILLÖ was a glimmer in their eye. If you want to hear some insights there, that could be cool. But until no further ado on this one, no further ado.
We're not messing around with these.
Get right into it. Let's get to reviewing this year with Team Shit Show, or as you more know them, Team Adorkable, Trista and Amy. Shit show. They're a shit show. That's all I got.
This intro's a shit show.
It's a shit show. Shit show. Team Shit Show. So
kicking off our month of years in review, Chipper and I came up with this like 2 minutes ago, because December is all about a year in review.
Reflecting.
We have two of our favorite people, one of our favorite teams, had an incredible year. Welcome back to the show for the third time, the Adorkables, Trista and Amy. How are you guys?
We're doing splendidly.
Thanks for having us back, guys.
Always such a treat to talk to. I love having you two on.
Yeah. And we saw you a lot this year, which is great to see you at all the events. And so, true to what we're trying to do with this show is year in review. I mean, you guys had an amazing year. So many experiences, highs, lows, everything. Like, now it's been a couple months a month since the season's ended. Have you guys already had enough time to kind of reflect on it and just kind of like sit around and just be like, oh my God, or you're still processing everything that happened?
I think as soon as I was done with, as soon as we got back from Sweden, I was like, that's it. The year's over. I'm done.
It's a shame.
The Chipper problem.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's kind of what Chipper did.
But I think it took a while for that to hit. And I think that hit as soon as I realized, like, oh shit, we still have 2 races left this year.
Which is fewer races than you wanted to have, because you also wanted to do Orcas, but
that's true. Yeah. Really sad we missed Orcas this year. But yeah, it was a big year. It was.
It feels like 3 years worth of year.
Wait.
That's a lot. It's over 1,000 days if we tallied all that up. But
go back. We started mean, Catalina. That was a long time ago.
That's
Catalina
right.
Camp. You know, that helps because I was thinking this year seems like it was really full of like races and events, but it really wasn't. It was just the ones that we did. I feel like I guess were big, but I'd forgotten about Catalina.
Yeah,
it was like the weight of it all. But also, I mean, I think for me, the year started, like the pressure of the year kind of started the second we found out, Swimrun Christmas, whatever that Thursday
February
in February.
4th.
It was my birthday.
Amy's birthday.
Oh,
Nice.
Super.
So we all found out, and it was sort of the proverbial, like, oh shit, like, what now?
Yeah. Even though we had no idea what we were really getting ourselves into.
We just relied on everyone to tell us what kind
Exactly.
of time we were
It
gonna
sounded really
have.
scary, but it was even scarier, it turns out, than it sounded.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you all had a full race season. We had our little pseudo swim run. We'll call it a fun Adventure Time camp in March, when originally Catalina was going to happen. Chris was across the Pacific running the LA Marathon, and then
right.
Swimrun Lake James, which we saw you all there.
Yep.
Casco, again, Sweden, NC. I'm like, we can't get away from the Adorkables.
We almost came out with California and did that one like homegrown swim run you guys
Oh yeah,
did.
the
The
8
Folsom,
miler.
yeah.
I would have forbidden you guys from coming. Like, you're not coming all this way unless we're gonna do the course like 3 times.
Should have done that.
It's true. Probably would have been good training.
Yeah. How now that you've had a few since September to reflect on ÖTILLÖ and your experience there, and you were prominently featured in the 42-minute, 43-minute film that ÖTILLÖ put out.
And that was a surprise.
How are you feeling about world champs?
Yeah, that was a lot. We weren't really expecting any of that. Rasmus had hit us up like a week or two before we got out there saying, hey, would you want to be filmed some? And we really didn't even know what that entailed and what it would, what would come of it until.
I mean, when Rasmus asks you that question, you're just automatically like, yes. And then later you can ask what that means. But,
It's like, yes, what am I agreeing to?
We'll sign right here and then you can tell us what that means.
On one hand, it was a lot. It was a lot like, oh God, I feel like it's like this additional pressure of something that's like already so big on our minds,
Mm-hmm.
but also it turned out to be a really nice distraction,
Oh.
with the cameras there and like figuring out like, I don't know, like what to talk about, what they're going to ask us. I felt like it was a distraction of like, oh shit, like this is really happening. Like we're here to do a race.
Well, during the race too. So, we were back of the pack. And so we were very alone the whole time. And all of a sudden in the middle of nowhere, we just come across Edward. And we're like, oh no, we've missed human contact other than each other. We're getting a little tired of each other. Frankly, it's been a while.
Yeah. And then when Otto found us, it was like, he just talked for 30 minutes straight and it was awesome. We didn't have to do any talking to each other.
So you guys worked with the one and only Nicholas Ramirez, and we saw the work you guys were putting in. I mean, you showed up to that race as prepared as I think Nico could have gotten you. How did you think the training worked out? Like anything you would have done different in the build up, or what are your thoughts as to like, when you got to Sweden, how were you feeling from all the work you did to get there?
I mean, after we got there, we realized maybe we should have gotten to Sweden 2 months earlier because
It's a cool
training
thing to
on
do,
the
apparently.
training on the course made such a difference. Having a week of it was a complete game changer. So, and getting to meet Nico in person and learning that he's just as sarcastic and funny as we believe we are.
You are.
As our self-perception allows us.
I think we learned more from Nico and in the 3 days leading up to Worlds than we have really like all year. Like that was like a crash course in swimrun. It really was. But even I think going into something like that, you just really have no idea what you're getting yourself into, I think, until you get there. Even all of the podcasts that we listened to, all of the advice that was given, all of that stuff leading into the race, like they talk about the rocks, they talk about the water. And like, I don't really think, it helped like preparing us. But what did help was when we were out there, it was like, oh, this is what everyone was talking about. And I felt like okay in that moment, like, oh yeah, this is supposed to be this way. Like that's what everyone was saying.
You know, it's funny you put it that way, because Chipper and I, we crashed a little swim run training when we were out there, and Nico had us doing these loops. We've talked about it on our race report, and like running through the woods all weird. And I think at the time we were like, this is just ridiculous. Like what's going on? And we didn't understand it until we started the race, where it's like, oh, that's what he was doing, because the entire thing is like this. But
the entire race is running through the woods all weird.
Yeah, exactly. Like up and down, left and right.
I'm like, what's the method to this? This is clearly some sort of madness that he's doing, zigging and zagging.
He clearly knew what he was doing.
He clearly knew what he was doing, and we did not.
but yeah, like as to the point,
wild, right?
As to like all of the advice that we got, all of our shows, like it was helpful up to a point for sure. But when someone tells you those first couple islands are treacherous, yes, you can understand that, you know, sort of intellectually, but until your boots on the ground, you really don't get a sense of like, wow, I mean, it's something else.
Yeah, your perception of treacherous, or whatever word they're using to describe the rocks, you're like, oh, okay, maybe you have your reference point is, oh, Vale Island on the Casco Bay course, and that's sort of what I locked that in. I was like, okay, this is treacherous. It is certainly a treacherous part of that course, and that was something that we like navigated. But yeah, there's nothing like it in-person experience, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
And you find Vale Island, and you run across Vale Island and you're done. It's a very short part of the race, but then you get there to Sweden and you realize the entire race is just, you have to constantly be doing technical stuff. Not just the rocks, but the roots and the trees and the everything. So you never get to turn off your brain. You never get to just zone out. And then on the one time you do get to zone out, it's terrible on Orna.
You get a zone out of your head because you're zoning to your legs on how much they're being punished. But I had the same thing, Amy. I remember talking to Chris like a few days after. I'm like, if you turned your brain off for some of those run segments, you would just run into a tree or a branch or a log. Like you had to be there was so much energy on focusing on what you were doing. It was incredibly demanding beyond definitely what I had expected.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. Not just physically, but like mentally. And, even, most time when you're running trails, like you can see a defined trail, you kind of know where to go, and you still are looking for flags because in case that trail splits. But a lot of times that course is literally, you're just flag to flag, and just like the mental taxation that puts on you. Yeah. Like you can never just relax.
I loved that quote from Katie about like, when do they come out and groom the trails?
Right.
I'm like, every year, the first Monday of September is when the grooming happens.
Bring out the trail Zamboni and clear that shit out.
Actually, that was really the only time the trails were groomed for us. Was I can't through the weeds. It was like so many people before us in that race had gone. And I'm like, you can actually see the trail is marked for us. Like,
that's one of our main recommendations: is come through late, and then you don't have to, crash the grass. It's already
a path has been made.
I mean, it's genius. It's genius.
I love it.
The rocks are more wet that way too, so we got a little more challenging of a course.
Yeah, it was hard for us.
It was hard for us.
Yeah.
You really earned it.
Now, Amy, Sherpa extraordinaire, like the Sherpa of Swimrun, I think we can call Matt at this point. Like he was out there. I'm curious if you can sort of relate, like, kind of what his experience was being on the spectator boat and kind of seeing you guys out on the course.
But also doing work, because I saw him riding his ass all over.
He was
all over
Sweden.
Yeah, he was putting some work in too.
Well, I think they dragged the spectators around, and they became volunteers. So anytime they get somewhere, they'd be like, doing something, and Matt's like, I'll help. So I think he probably ended up having just as tiring a day as we did, and then completely schooled us on the last island where he jumped on a bike that we assumed he had stolen, because where did he get a bike? Like, it's ridiculous.
There were like 4 of them leaned up somewhere, and I
wanted to steal so many of those bikes.
Maybe I'll just grab one of these. Chris can ride on the handlebars.
Middle of the Swedish archipelago, and you run past a bike or a car, and you're like, okay, I'll take that.
Wait, are we going back to like the 2000s where they had bikes on this course?
Sure,
are we supposed to ride this now?
I hope they take.
Matt was awesome out there. Matt did a great job. He was awesome.
Yeah, the only problem we had with Matt was when we, spoiler, almost didn't make a 2.5 minute time cutoff. We saw Matt ahead. We were running for the aid station, running for the wherever the time cutoff was, and we saw Matt, and we're like, "Oh God, we made it! He's right there, and we have plenty of time." Mm-hmm. And we got there, and he's like, "You're doing great! Keep going!" And we're like, "Oh God, this isn't where the time cutoff is."
Oh no! How much more did you have to go after?
It was like another minute or something.
Oh, okay.
But when you're working in, minute increments, that was a long minute.
Yeah. We needed him. We thought he was going to be at the cutoff, and we got to him, and he wasn't the cutoff. We're like, oh shit.
and this is something that I really liked about you two, is that you were very honest with yourselves about you were in great shape when you showed up, but you knew you weren't going to be.
Yeah, there's no
you knew
delusions,
you were chasing. You were kind of running from the cutoffs a little bit. How did you sort of, maybe working with Nico, or what did you kind of do to put yourself in the right mind space of that for such a long day?
Yeah, I think Amy and I both have done enough endurance events that I think anyways, I don't know if I can speak for Amy, I think everything we've signed up for, it's like, we believe we can do it. We believe we can finish. Maybe you have to have a lot of things line up for you to be good on that day, but we believe that we can do the workouts, we can do the training, and that we'll finish whatever we set out to do. But in this race, I really don't know if either one of us felt 90% confident that we were actually going to be able to finish this within the cutoffs, because how can you know? We know we can do the distance, and we know we can do the terrain. We know we can handle the swims and the runs and the weather and everything else. But the timing, we just didn't know. Yeah. And that, for me, I think that was the hardest part. And so, yeah, we were under no delusions, that it was going to be possibly running from the cutoffs.
We knew that the first 2 time cutoffs were aggressive. And so we actually looked at the numbers and tried to figure out, this is how fast we'd have to run. This is how fast we'd have to swim. And that almost drove us crazy. We're like, we can't think like that. We don't know what aggressive means on those first 2 islands. We don't know what technical means. Mm-hmm. We can't try to, we can't say, okay, we need to run at least a 13-minute mile for that first 2 time cutoffs. We don't know what we're going to, it could be a 20-minute mile, the only thing possible.
And it's on in some kilometers.
Yeah. That's true. So I think we tried not to overthink it. We just did what we could. And when we got out there, we did what we could.
Well, and we did. You, as a spectator, I was pretty stressed out because when we crossed the finish line and we saw Marcus and Beak, we was we heard anything, and they said that they knew that you guys had made the cutoff by 3 minutes or something, and I just got super stressed because I was like, oh my God, that was a long time ago. This thing gets crazy. So I was, I'll admit, I was super stressed for you guys. So maybe I was just taking on all that stress you guys were deflecting.
We appreciate that, because as it turns out, we weren't stressed at all towards that.
Again, we were
great.
I just absorbed it all. But yeah, it's a long time. As Chipper mentioned, it's a long time to kind of be on mentally. It's a long time to be sort of chasing cutoffs, and just an amazing performance by you guys. I'm super super happy for you, and I think I'm curious. You guys have done a lot of endurance stuff, both together and separately. Where does this performance kind of rank in your sort of pantheon of feats of endurance?
Well, it's the only tattoo that Amy has. So.
Right. There's your question answered.
Yeah, we actually talked about that a little bit during the race. I think on Orna, because we had nothing better to do. And
we spent days on Orna.
Took up residence.
I was trying to compare it to other races, other kinds of races I've done. And I would say it was harder than an Ironman, but not as hard as a 100-mile run, is where I ranked it. But I think that, if I did a 100-mile run with someone by my side the entire time, I think it'd be a lot easier. I think that having that partner makes such a difference in the race. You can't compare.
Yeah, and especially you two who are doing, and this seems to be sort of the trend with most, or with some of the U.S. teams, is because we have, if you're trying to qualify for ÖTILLÖ, you end up having to do all your races together. You can't go, and there's not enough. So you two have done a lot of high number of races together, so you have a lot of those, Amy's been in the low part and Trista has to pull her out, vice versa. The shoe's been on the other foot probably 50 times each, just the same with Chris and I. So having that sort of book of, hey, we've done hard things and we've gotten through hard things before, and to keep going is just you can't understate that. I think having that good, being a good ability to rely on your partner to bring you out of a poor time that you're having,
and knowing what drives them, what will motivate them, what they need when they're down.
Yeah.
I can imagine partnering with a new person and being like, I don't know, you're doing terrible or great. I don't know what helps you.
Am I talking too much? Are you talking enough?
Well,
like Amy's learned. Amy's learned for me. I always dread the long run, and whatever swim run, if there's a long run in the middle, that's the part I dread. It's like mentally just psychs me out, and I build it up in my head, and I hate it. So now Amy's learned that she tells me that's going to be the worst part of the race, and it's going to be terrible, and it's going to suck, and I'm always like, oh, Amy, it's not going to be that bad.
Nice.
And then suddenly it's better.
Or we'll be out there and she's like, how much more do we have? And if the answer is like 3 miles, I have to tell her it's like 5. And then she'll feel good about it. And then it'll only be 3.
That happened to us on Orna. And the sign said like 1 km to church is basically what we were to make out. And I was like, oh, I can put in 1K of running right here. I can do it because I know the aid station is right there. I can make it to get that pickle juice that I ended up having.
Pickle juice.
We both read your race report, which was over multiple days, which I found a little annoying. I wish you would have just spent the 8 hours to write that whole thing in once, so I didn't have to wait.
5,000 words novella.
Congratulations on making it through the race report, by the way.
Yeah. Hey, well, I have to ask a follow-up question for something that happened because we are a couple 12-year-olds that host this show, but you guys had a poop experience, and if I remember correctly, this is the first time where it's been like a
problem.
Where it's been a thing you had to deal with?
No.
Okay, well,
damn it. I thought this was going to be about Amy.
Trista's super happy because previously only Trista had a poop story. And we don't care. I don't care that Trista had to poop. The funny part of Trista's poop story is that it was during Casco Bay and it was on the last island. So
like 2018 or something. It wasn't this year. It was literally like 300 meters from the finish line.
Well, in fairness, that's where you would not want to have some sort of spectacular blowout or something.
Yeah, unless you're winning the race.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to do to win it.
She won, but she had to shit herself. It's fine. She won.
So, oh, look at that.
Yes.
We are not that dedicated or serious of athletes.
I had to stop during World Champs and I had to poop. And if I had spent 3 more minutes pooping, we would have missed the time cutoff and DNF'd.
Well, praise your high fiber diet for that one.
And you just kind of like went into the woods, or was there a porta potty? Like,
you're getting in there.
The people want to know.
Did you save it for the poop swim? That would have been the ideal spot.
Yeah, just add to it.
To the poop.
Apparently, everyone that went through before us did. So, so it was one of those situations where I was like, okay, I kind of need to poop, but I really don't want to. Like, seriously, this is ridiculous. And I kept running, and it went away for a while, and I'm like, yay! And then I was like, where did it go? Because there's always that concern. Like, seriously, if you don't have to poop anymore, where did it go? But then it came
back up. Yeah.
But then it came back, and I was like, okay, I have to do something about this. And finally, I'm like, Trista. So
when she was saying that initially that she had to go, we were like, it was like desolate. It was in the middle of nowhere. It was like no houses around. We were literally in the middle of a forest with no one around.
So I waited until we were like in the middle of a, neighborhood, basically, as much as there was on any of those islands. And I'm like, okay, I really need to poop. Okay, there's a house. There's some people out in their yard. So I had to wait, I don't know, like another 5 minutes before I could actually find a place that was barren enough that I could duck off into the trees. Yeah. And, it's not something you ever practice. Like, you don't practice what you have to do to poop as fast as possible while wearing all your gear. So I handed Trista my buoy. I took that off from around my waist and gave it to her and went out there and started to cab down.
Untethered.
I was still wearing my race
belt.
Question. You can't get past the race belt while wearing, you can't take your wetsuit down while wearing and so that was, kids, if you have to poop during a race, make sure you hand off the race belt as well as the buoy is what I learned.
Yeah,
Smart.
And
Pro
now
tip.
we have in our training peaks plans like how to poop faster and better, because Nico was not happy with our poop performance.
Oh,
It was
It doesn't mean that I
subpar.
had to poop, just that it took me as long as it did.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, Amy like narrowed it down. She looked at the Garmin and found exactly how many minutes it took her to poop, so that
what zone were you in?
It was like zone 7.
Yeah. You'd think it'd be zone number 2.
Above. Nice.
Be here all week.
Thank you.
Good job, 12-year-old.
So
But yeah, luckily it didn't. She didn't take any longer, because that was before the first cutoff, and
Right.
that would have been a sad way to DNF
That was after this. That was after the first cutoff, before the second cutoff.
before the second.
Yep.
Yeah.
Down to the wire.
yeah, I mean that would you would have had some explaining to do for sure.
And actually, that's the thing I wanted to say for all you people at the back of the pack. We heard that the first 2 cutoffs were aggressive, and after that, you probably were going to be a little more okay. And we found that absolutely to be true. So we had
Nice.
3 minutes for time cutoff 2. We had 30 minutes for time cutoff 1, 3 minutes for time cutoff 2, and after that, we consistently I had like 30 minutes for each time cutoff.
Yeah.
So once we made it past that second one, we had some
So
time
that's a shout out to Anna Lundberg who
Yes.
gave us that pro tip.
That's a great tip.
Way back.
Thank you, Anna.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Anna.
Did and the not that you could pace faster on any of those first islands or anything, but was that something you were trying to do? Is like, let's get those first 2 cutoffs kind of ticked
Yeah.
off, but
I think
we
our
don't want to go too
strategy-
far into the red zone or burn any matches doing that.
Right. Yeah, I think our strategy was like, we're just going to go our pace. We're going to be smart, right? We didn't want to push the pace too much and then end up getting hurt. But we did try to minimize, water stops, aid stations, in and out. Like, if we're messing with gear, we're walking at least while we're doing that, just to continue moving forward. But we weren't pushing the pace by any means, until the end when we were doing the funky metric math. Like, we've got 4K and 35 minutes, and what's the math on that, and how much, and then it was like, okay, an all-out sprint. And
by all-out
sprint,
she means like an
11-minute mile.
Hey, that's a sprint at the time. That was a sprint that you had in you, so that's what you gave.
Yeah,
That was probably really the only match we burned was, if we had to burn to match, it was the last, 2 minutes before that cutoff, like when we saw Matt.
Which is a little unnerving, knowing that you still have, 3/4 of the race to go and you're pushing outside of your comfort zone. And, what happens after we make the time cutoff? Are we just going to be deceased?
What does Matt Dixon call it when you do something really stupid? It's like catastrophic. What does he call it? Catastrophic failure.
Yeah, catastrophic failure or
Yeah, it's like if you go out too hot, you're just heading to catastrophic failure or something like that. It's like, oh, okay, Matt Dixon.
I mean, it was either, not make the cutoff and you have to stop, or it was like, burn the match and then you get to keep going.
For sure.
So-
Now, you get to the finish line. We're all super stoked. We're all everyone's screaming. Who's not screaming? And you
that was-
still have the wherewithal to do a little finish line jig, as you're known to do. At this point, you just have to do it every time.
There's a lot of pressure at this point.
Like, how was there at any point where you're like, you know what, let's just screw this, let's cross the finish line, or is it you spent the Orna like choreographing what you're gonna do?
There was never a thought of like, I just want to walk across the finish line like a normal person.
It was a little scary because we'd picked something that we thought looked pretty. It didn't look as impressive at the actual finish line because none of our body parts worked. And we'd picked something that requires a fair number of functional body parts. And so we got there and we're like, well, we're just going to go for it. Also, we'd only practiced the day before, so we didn't have a lot of muscle memory built up for that one. So it could have gone either way.
When I saw that happening, I'm like, I'm not sure I can put my body in those type of positions right now, let alone at the very end of the race. Like,
we weren't
sure of that either.
yeah,
How'd the race go? Well, we would have finished, but we threw our backs out like two meters from the finish.
but I
roll
mean,
across the finish line at that point.
they captured some of it in the video, but the sort of the energy around you two being on Uta and heading up. This was being communicated. We had gotten word from somewhere else, and the energy just started building up because you were one of the last few sort of finishers to come in. But all the U.S. crew was there, and the Envol Blue Army and Blue Wave. What is it?
Matt was sprinting up the hill like he's in the fucking Tour de France, just going for
he was going for it. Like we need him in a devil costume. He could be the devil guy going up next time. But
noted for the future.
It was just
you guys. I have the goosebumps hearing you talk about it because it really was one of the most amazing finish lines. Like you hear about this heartbreak hill at the end and how the winners had to walk and well maybe not the winners, you go max, but and Amy and I were like, I felt amazing. Like I like a huge smile on my face. Like I felt so pumped, and I love the video like of you guys saying, "We know them." Like the little elf, Santa, I know him.
But the energy was so great, and being there to cheer you on was, I mean, definitely the highlight of one of the highlights of my year for sure. Is like being able to see you two kind of complete this, and everyone there was just great. And then your performance at the end, and then sort of the embrace with the ÖTILLÖ family, Michael and everyone there was just great. And then I'm like, now we can really get the party started here.
That's the thing. I'm so happy that, I mean, it's a long day out there for everyone. Yeah, it took us 13 and almost a half hours, but some people were done much quicker than that, and they stayed around at the end and still like came out to cheer us on.
It was an island. There was nowhere.
But they couldn't have left. It's true.
They could have left.
They could have been taking naps.
Yeah.
As we approached the finish line, I was like, Trista, this is not, this is going to be a hug PR for us. What's going to happen when we cross the hug PR? And it was like just so many people.
So many hugs. All the hugs.
Tons of hugs.
Yeah.
I felt a little bad because Michael Lemmel hugged us and I'm like, oh, we're so disgusting. But then I learned that he had pissed himself earlier. And so he was disgusting too. And so I felt better about the whole situation.
Allegedly?
I think it's allegedly. I think he made it in time, but it was close.
It's always the truth to the rumors,
Yeah. You don't want
the high priest of
Swimrunning. Myself too, so.
And then we got to join you two at Swimrun NC after, which we had never done before. And, I think going into it, we were like, oh, yeah, we're excited to do it. It's the last year. But the sort of
just kidding,
the logistics of the race was like, oh, this will be interesting. But I was wildly happy and surprised with how fun that race was and how good of a time Swimrun NC was. And you all had done it multiple times before. I guess you could have clued us in earlier.
It could have been a surprise.
Yeah. We weren't keeping it a secret.
Well, that race
it doesn't help when you guys like, do every race. It's like, well, yeah,
we already have every race on the list.
It's hard to choose a favorite. I love that race. That race is always so fun. It's just the atmosphere around it. It absolutely does not play to our strengths personally for Amy and I with the, the
running
elevation and the running. Yeah. I mean, with the it doesn't have enough swimming for us, and the runs that it does have, it's technical and lots of elevation, which again, but it's such a great race and it is a lot of fun. And it always is such a fun way to end the season. Although that didn't end for us this year. We had one more race after.
Yeah. I mean, it's Swimrun NC, again, we're kind of kidding. We thought it was going to be the last race. So honestly, if we knew it wasn't going to be the last race, we might have skipped it just because it was just so much,
yeah, we were feeling it for sure. I think.
But so happy we did it. And,
yes.
I guess it's not a spoiler, but it's basically taking a year off and then it's coming back in 2024. So we would highly recommend people check that out. It's a cool area, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And then, super fun. Mm-hmm.
What, Amy?
Waterfalls.
Waterfalls.
And the vista, getting out, and you're like, oh, stop for the picture, which I really appreciated that they did that. They just made everyone stop. That way there's no, so this team didn't stop for the picture, and we did, and we lost by 3. There was none of that stuff. But when we got out and it just opened up, I looked at Chris. I was like, "Whoa! I didn't know all this. I didn't know it was this high up here." And look at all we've been climbing.
Climbing up, you're looking down, just trying not to trip on. I'm trying to count these 400 steps, and I don't know who's doing math on those.
Yeah,
It's like, is this a step? Because this just looks like a little piece of dirt anyway. But yeah, but you come up on this clearing, you're like, oh shit!
It was an incredible view up there, and
really pretty up there, especially that time of year in the fall with all the color changes and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's really pretty.
Yeah, we talked about this at the race, but I think the person that had the most fun was Herbert. I think he puts it on because he just has. It's so obvious. He just has such a blast seeing everyone do the race, finishing, their energy. It just like fuels them.
I think that's why one of the reasons why they needed a year off is because he puts so much into it. You know, he really does put so much of himself into the race. And so I can see why, they need a break.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Speaking of breaks, we're in the off season right now.
We sure as hell
I thought you were
are.
going to say, speaking of breaks, take a year off from the show. I'm like, what? We haven't talked about this.
Is this how you find out?
That would be really something. Yeah, anything you all are focused on this off season? I know Chris and I are kicking around a few different projects that we're each interested in doing to performance related. Myself, I'm looking to get a little bit stronger and take on Orno. I'm not going to have it break me this time around next year.
I feel like that's always one of my goals is strength. I feel like I never get enough strength training in during the regular season. So that's always like a goal of mine, something that I have. But also this year, more than ever, I'm just like, I truly want like some downtime, like some just off. Like I was telling Nico, you can put some workouts in the calendar, but like I may or may not do them. I just want to do something totally different and not even swimming or running, just something active, move my body. And maybe it's, Amy and I joined Orange Theory Fitness.
I've
Been doing that because it's just something completely different,
Nice.
Turns out rowing is not a thing that happens to me naturally.
Well, rowing correctly, I mean, it's like anything.
I didn't say rowing correctly. I haven't even tried that. I'm just trying to row it all.
Just one.
It's a lot like swimming, though, and then they have treadmills. So I'm like, I'm not really doing a lot that different from swimming and running. Fail.
Yeah, I've mostly been swimming and running still, but at whatever pace I want, whenever I want, whatever distance I want, just being released from, speed work and obligation.
Yeah.
Even if I'm still doing the exact same things, I feel like it's on my terms.
Yeah, kind of like untethered.
Exactly.
Chris, you're on it today.
I know, I really am.
You're really on it. Yeah, I feel very kind of similar with you all there. We're sort of in the same place of where, let's do something else for now. This was our second year of being swim runners and only doing swim run events, with the exception here and there of some randomness. But was it the same for you all? In 2021, did you all have any triathlons or trail runs? Yeah, Amy had a 50 miler or something, I think.
No, 50K. We both did a 50K last year.
But I think that was all towards in the heart, like spirit of swim run. I think.
Right.
I think we've been
training for swim run.
Yeah. And it's funny this year. I feel like it wasn't so much just the training. I mean, like I'm physically tired, but it's just having families and having to prioritize stuff and working around schedules and all of that. It's that responsibility that I want to take a break from. It's the oh shit, we have to do this workout because if we don't, we might fail world champs. It's like just letting go of that and just kind of backing off the prioritization of training just a little bit is really nice. And I'm really, really needing that this
that's a really good way to think about it. I feel like, especially something like Worlds. I mean, it's such a big thing. It's on a pedestal. It's it's going to be hard. It's going to be a huge feat. It's hard to keep that focus for that long. And hey, we're not pros. These are hobbies, and they should be sort of enhancing our lives. And when it starts feeling like a job, I'm sorry, I already have a job. I don't need two of them, or three if you count the podcast. It's like if you're not having fun, it's a good time to back away and sort of reevaluate and give yourself some space.
It's super healthy feeling.
And, we talk about this a lot being a team sport. Like, you always feel like you don't ever want to let your partner down. And wow, that was like super magnified this year, because the long, hard stuff that we've done before has always been, like solo. Right. And so this time though, it was like, I have the added pressure of like, I can't let Amy down. She's expecting me to do this work. So not only am I putting the pressure on myself this time around, it's also like, geez, Amy, quit pressuring me.
The me inside of your head is a real bitch.
You are a bitch.
Wow. You just got to stop letting her in there.
She's not like that. That's the great thing about Amy and I. She's like, oh, you missed a workout. I don't care. It's fine. Pick it up tomorrow. We're not going to fail world champs because of this.
Yeah. And that's sort of where I mean, honestly, if your relationship and if your relationship with your partner wasn't that way, it would be a hell of a time getting through 9 month, 8 month, whatever month build into this world champ, stressing and looking at Strava and be like, oh, Kristen, he mispaced, or he shaved off 200 on a swim here or there. That would my head would explode with all that sort of nonsense.
Yeah. Where you have to be aligned with your partner and the goals that you have. And
I'm going to get a tattoo, so I won't be able to swim for like 6 months or something.
I know.
I'm like, I guess I'm leading swims.
Well, we had a conversation about it.
Talk
about teamwork. It's like, hey, I've been waiting 3.5 years to get this thing done, and my numbers come up. It's like, I'm not going to be able to do a lot of swimming. It's like, I can start it later. I can start it now. It's going to take forever. And, and Chipper was just like, do it. So...
Just to be clear, I wasn't calling you out, Chris. I was calling Trista out. She two sessions.
That's right. We're both getting massive tattoos.
Oh.
Yeah.
Anyway, I felt seen, so.
Look, that was all you that you.
Okay, so Amy's like, no, please stay out of the pool. I would like for you to be a slower swimmer.
Exactly. I need you to get slower on the swim so I don't have to work so hard behind you trying to stay in your draft.
There you go.
Question for you guys. So what are you going to do differently next year? What did you learn this year and you'll do differently training for Worlds next year?
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously thought about this a ton, and we've talked about it with our coach and everything. And I feel like for us, it would have been interesting to try out a couple of over-endurance run days, maybe in the 6 weeks leading up. So maybe like a 3 or 4 hour trail run, like a 50K or something like that, and have a little bit more of the endurance trail legs. I feel is kind of at least for me is what I feel.
Yeah, or like another way to put that, more of like an ultra runner base rather than like a swimming 30,000 yards a week base. I mean, that's helpful too, but like and this is something that I was chatting with Bill Langford about when we were all in Austin. It's just, when we talk about Orna, it's like, oh yeah, that's just like the long run. That's towards the end of the race. I mean, that it's its own test in this huge quest that you're on. And great, sure, you can run 12, 11 miles, no problem. Can you do it after all the shit you've been through? Because that's a different thing.
8 hours,
it's
9
kind of
hours
like Ironman, where it's like, the way I would explain to people is like, yep, you do a long swim, you do a super long bike ride, then you start a marathon in the afternoon without having a proper lunch. That's the experience, have fun with it. And it's like, I mean, it was just a beast. And I think like preparing specifically to be good on that area requires you having sort of the feet and the running base, I think, to be able to manage it. And you see a lot of people doing it, like Sabina Rapelli, like they were doing like back-to-back 50Ks over a couple weekends, like maybe a month out of the race, I think. And we were just doing super long swim runs.
Yeah.
But
also everyone was having a hard time on that island, so
that's true.
There's quite a few times leading into Worlds, we had like 7 or 8 hour runs. Like, just go out, like, I would go run the AT, like a 50K, solo 50K on the AT or something. And it was like, the longer, the better. Like Nico was always like, I don't care about your pace on those long days, just, kind of time on feet.
Yeah, that's probably where we could have benefited. I think when pretty much when we reached Orna and I got out of the swim and I'm like, is this Orna? And everyone's like, yep. I'm like, okay, let's do it. And then my legs were like,
nope.
They're like, nope, this ain't happening. And my feet, my dogs were barking. But one thing I would have not changed is the swim base and the swim fitness that we had. I think that race, obviously we were treated to a magical day on the ocean, and there was nary a wave to be seen, really. But I think having the fitness and the confidence, I guess, on all these swims are a quote unquote a non-issue for us. Like, we know we can get through this, even if it has more chop or a little bit colder. We know we can get through this. That was one piece that was really just like maybe just a confidence injection in the arm for us. That I really
like we never worried about the swim. That wasn't even on our like radar of things to worry about, and it was never an issue. Like, I barely remember the swims because they were great.
Yeah.
I mean, I was my biggest concern going into it was the cold. Before we knew it was going to be a warm race, right?
Yeah.
Was the cold. I was terrified all, summer. Like, how are we training in 100-degree weather and then going to be prepared going into these, like 50-something swims? And so it turned out to be a non-issue.
Right.
Thankfully.
Yeah, it's like it's already a dare to be great situation, but like, how great do like
how much greatness do you have?
Keep it within reason,
Yeah. So yeah, luckily that those turned out to be non-issues, because obviously we had some issues with the run. That was a lot harder mentally and physically.
Yeah. Yeah.
I joke before going over there again. My mental state was I'm going over to Sweden to do a half marathon on Orna. And then like everything else was like second to that. Like, that was my main thing. Just get through Orna. Like, you can survive that half marathon or whatever it was on Orna, and you can have fun with a swim run on either side of it.
That 10, 11, 12, 13 mile run, whatever
it is. Yeah. I mean, for me, it was like, my thinking was like, hey, if we get to Orna, we're home free.
More or less.
I'm rephrasing that going forward as like, you get to the end of Orna.
The other side of Orna.
So, I mean, even that little subtle shift, I'm like, Orna, great. We can sort of take down the temperature a little bit. But no, it's like, you really have to. I mean, it's a struggle. That island is no joke.
So you guys are for sure going back then if you are selected.
That's kind of what we're thinking. Like, if we recall, it's looking okay so far in terms of the rankings. I mean, I know a bunch of people probably haven't put their stuff in, but it looks like we'll be able to requalify. And we're just thinking, it's like, hey, we don't want to start some streak where we're doing this like 10 years in a row or something like that. Andy Hewitt has that; he can keep it. But I think doing it twice while we have the fitness and sort of the
piss.
I was going to say sort of like the temperament or aptitude to go out there, but yeah, we have the piss for it. It makes sense to just go back.
Yeah, do it while the appetite is there.
So you'll do Lake James and Casco in prep for a point?
So we haven't. I mean,
those points won't count. It'll be too late.
Yeah. Worlds is the only kind of penciled thing we have on the entire calendar as of right now. But yeah, I mean, we're doing our own reflecting this year, and you did all the races.
Show about this stuff.
So what we've got to say, we can't spoil the fireside chat.
We're just going to interview you. It was unofficial,
but yeah, I mean, we did it. It was a long year for us. Yeah. A lot of travel, a lot of trips to the East Coast and back. It was just a lot, and I think we're both kind of looking forward to doing a little bit less in totality of races.
But what about we just learned about those 2 Bend swim runs? What does that mean?
Yeah, I know. See, curveball, life comes at you fast. That's when you mentioned something like that.
My thing is like, hey, if it's on our West Coast and it's like, it's
just an hour flight
or something. Yeah. I mean, hey, if we're trying to help grow this thing, it means supporting new events, and this is the Bend racing people. They seem to know what they're doing, but if they reach out and they want, our advice, we'll happily give it or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to push to do those races.
Yeah. I think,
not right now.
Right.
Fireside chat.
About it right now.
Fireside chat. Save it.
How about you guys? What are you thinking?
Yeah, what's on the calendar for the Adorkable?
Rockman.
We did something really stupid in our post-season haze. We signed up for Florida, the new Swimrun in Florida, Coastal Dunes. Mm-hmm. We signed up for long course because that's what you do.
I mean,
right? Oh yeah, of course. You're gonna go all that way. from
Well,
Atlanta.
we signed up for a long course before we even looked at the course.
I like that it's pretty long too.
It is like, I was expecting it to be Mackinac Austin, grade, and it's not. It's 23 miles of running, 7 days of swimming, I think.
Yeah, so off season just got a bit shorter. It's fine. So yeah, we'll start off next year with Florida, and then Lake James, and then probably Bend, one of the new one in May.
Mm-hmm.
And then what else, Amy? We've got Casco.
Sounds like you're re-qualifying for your airline status already.
No. Not world champs. Amy put a big veto on that. We can't do both that and
do both.
Yeah. We're going to go to
Marcus and Deke.
Yeah, and Rockman, this has been something that's been, in the works. So this is like 3 years kind of in the making.
After our very first swim run at Lake James in 2018, I did a Rockman promposal to Amy. Like that was like, we were hooked. It was it. We were going to Rockman. Like wow. Literally like I wrote out Rockman and big rocks and like put my little tiny buoy there. I'll send you the picture. It's really cute. And then 4 years later, we still. Yeah.
So
sounds adorkable.
We didn't feel capable. We wanted a little more time under our belt, so we didn't do it the next year.
No, that's not true. We didn't do it because you had a bike trip planned to Europe.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah, she wasn't capable to swim run. She was only capable to bike.
Yeah, she was going to be in the Dolomites or something.
Domestique.
So the first year that we could have done it, we didn't, and then pandemic, and then world champs, and so we're really, really hoping to do it this time.
Here's our year.
We're committed.
Yeah,
we got Alex the Brit to join us.
Nice.
Spoiler.
Is he going to get a partner?
I don't know. He didn't mention anything about that.
Yeah, so probably not.
To figure that out.
Yeah.
Maybe we should put him and Katie together. Here she's looking.
Or I don't want to step on Nico's matchmaking toes. I'll just say that.
Sure.
We got enough stuff to worry about instead of matchmaking people.
Right.
I mean, that sounds like a pretty good year. And then Swimrun NC, well, not NC, but Austin again or something.
I mean,
close it out.
Yeah, Austin's always like a no-brainer because that's our hometown. I mean, Amy still lives there, but it's hometown for me. So that's one I think that we'll definitely. We haven't really talked about it, but I think assume if dates work out, then we're there for sure.
Yeah, we've done it 3 years in a row, and it's like such a great way to end the season. It's sort of like the end of the year party, Swimrun.
Yeah, it's just a big happy time. And this year the turnout was.
An official thing. You should make it like official. Like let's do like a party, like an end of year swim run party there.
Yeah, you know what? If we weren't always trying to jam out, but maybe we do the party the night before and then just ruin everyone's
hangover race.
Absolutely,
it might help people be slow at the start. Finally, damn.
People were
That's never going to happen, Chris.
That's true.
Well, we're super proud of you guys. We think you guys had an amazing year, and we're so great that we're able to at least have front row seats to all these feats. So thank you guys for sharing your sort of year in review with us, and congrats.
Well, we had a lot of fun being with you at all the races this last year. So we're not done trying to convince you to do Rockman. You can say no all you want, but we're going to keep trying for Rockman 2023.
Did you buy a Stairmaster already?
I'm going to live
in my cold plunge pool.
I saw Trista bought a big horse trough that she put a bunch of ice in. Amy, what stuff are you cooking up over there?
I am not as affected by cold, so I'm just going to brashly and confidently say that I'm going to be fine, and then I'll probably end up being the problem. And we can look back on this moment.
I'll mark this clip.
This is going to live forever on the internet, so we'll refer back to it, see if it works out. But thank you guys so much for taking the time. Appreciate you. Love you. Have a great holiday, and we'll see you out there.
Happy holidays to you, boys.
Bye.
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 Well, that's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Sign up for our newsletter at lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at the Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any suggestions for the show or questions for us, send us a DM or an email at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of all our swimrun activities, podcast, and other stuff.
Yeah, other stuff.
Way
to keep it PG. Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Go for a run.
Then another swim.
Then another run.
And then another swim.
And then another run.
And then just keep going. Until you're done.
Or maybe can't
And then
stop.